Hello, welcome to Chris Collects, and today we're going to be talking about The Batman. But first, don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. Let me know, have you seen The Batman? What did you think of it? Try to keep it spoiler free. Without further ado, let's get into it. So, I went to see The Batman on Thursday preview day in IMAX, and then I also went to see it the day after in regular Odeon screen. In fact, actually, I saw them at the exact same time, so I saw them 24 hours apart from each other. So, just want to say straight out the gate, I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. However, I might, let something slip. So if you're prone to spoilers whatsoever, just go see the movie, then come back and watch this video. But like I said, I'll try my best to keep it really, really spoiler-free. So, The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson as Batman, Zoe Kravitz as Selina Kyle, Paul Dano as the Riddler. You've got Jeffrey Wright playing Lieutenant James Gordon. You've got Andy Serkis as Alfred Pennyworth. And you've got Colin Farrell as Oz, or the Penguin, as he's referred to more in the movie. I'm going to break this review into several sections. We're going to talk about story. We're going to talk about the cast. We're going to talk about the score. We're going to talk about the visual effects, the cinematography, the direction, and then I'll just give my overall thoughts and opinions on this movie as a whole. So, The Batman is about an earlier days Batman, okay? He's been Batman for 2 years, and we don't get the origin story because, we know it. We know how it happens. The Waynes get murdered. He becomes Batman. It's something that you just don't need to see anymore. It's much like when they brought Spider-Man into the MCU, you didn't see Uncle Ben get shot. You just don't always need to see the origin, especially these bigger characters. So, it's a detective story through and through. They promised us a detective story, and that's exactly what it is. It's a 3-hour detective story. We get to see Batman really do the world's greatest detective thing, and it's following the Riddler, who is a serial killer in this version of the Batman. And it's about Batman and Gordon just trying to solve the Riddler's game. The Riddler's playing a bit of a game with him, and they're just trying to solve this puzzle. They want to know, what's the end goal of the Riddler's plan. And without giving too much away, the story is fantastic. The story feels like it's exactly ripped out of a Batman comic book, filled with Bruce Wayne narration, and you get to see the interactions between Batman and Gordon as they're trying to figure out what is going on, and it just really, really nails that detective aspect, which I'm so glad, because we were promised that from day one, that's what this movie was going to be, and we don't really have a lot of that in the live action movies. The Dark Knight does it a little bit with the bullet in the wall bit, but a lot of previous live action iterations have all been about the action, and this still has the action. You just get this great detective crime noir thriller narrative throughout, and I think that's something that this movie absolutely nailed. It's exactly like Seven. It's a bit like Saw. It's just this amazing, gritty, grim crime noir film that isn't going to be for everyone. And there was a lot of controversy in the UK around it being rated a 15. I personally think they could have got away with a 12A. I understand why the BBFC went for a 15, but that aside, it's a darker movie. It's a very dark movie in comparison to previous Batman movies. And actually, it's quite hard to compare this to other Batman movies because it's its own thing. It's so different. And just when you think they can't do anything different with Batman, you get this film. And that's something that I just find so exciting as a Batman fan. The cast. So, the standout for me, I think, was Zoe Kravitz as Selina Kyle. I thought she did an absolutely fantastic job. I've always been a bit meh on Catwoman in live action iterations. I liked Anne Hathaway in The Dark Knight Rises. I liked Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman Returns. However, I'm not a big fan of Batman Returns as a film. Don't hate me. I just think it's a bit too weird. But I think Zoe Kravitz in one movie has done exactly what I wanted to see in a Selina Kyle Catwoman type, which is build this, complicated relationship with Batman. And, you see them work together, but then you see them apart as well. And it's that, like, electricity between the two, which I think in a media, the best version of that I can think of is in the Telltale game series. They do a really good job of developing the relationship between Batman and Selina Kyle, Catwoman. And what I love about this version of the character is she's not Catwoman yet. She never really gets called Catwoman. She gets called a cat burglar and a cat thief, and you get all that sort of hinting at that's who she is. But she's Selina Kyle, to the point where on all the merchandise it's not Catwoman, it's Selina Kyle. And I like that because she's got this homemade cut up mask that she uses, and it just feels really grounded. In fact, this to me in some ways felt more grounded than the Dark Knight trilogy. And that's something that the Nolan films always get heralded as being so real and being so grounded, but there is stuff in those movies that just wouldn't exist. I think the Tumblr is a good example of that. Like, that's just something that probably wouldn't exist, at least not currently. You might get things that are similar to it, but it's still quite a weird thing in that world. Whereas the aesthetic of the Batman is very much this grim, grounded, real world, to the point where the Batmobile is a muscle car, and it's just a muscle car that has been jacked up with turbo boosters, and it looks like a car from Fast and Furious, pretty much. It is just absolutely rammed with stuff to make that car an absolute beast. And I'll come back to the Batmobile because there is an amazing sequence in this movie featuring that car. So Zoe Kravitz for me, I think, is the standout. Paul Dano as the Riddler, he completely reinvented that character. We get this like Zodiac killer style take on the character. He's creepy. He's almost weirdly funny sometimes because he's so creepy and he's so unhinged. And there is a great interrogation scene, actually very reminiscent of the interrogation scene in The Dark Knight. Not identical, but that's what it reminds you of. That is just a masterclass in acting between Robert Pattinson and Paul Dano, and that is an amazing sequence. But he absolutely killed it. He really, really sells this role, and I would love to see him in future films because I think there's so much more you could do with that character. Jeffrey Wright, Lieutenant Gordon, probably my favourite Gordon. For a long time it was Gary Oldman, but I just think he really sells a lot of this. He really sells. He's the only one in the GCPD that really has any trust or any faith in Batman, and their dynamic together is brilliant. He adds a lot of the levity to the situations, and you just get to see him be a good cop. And Batman even has a moment where he says, "You're a good cop," to him, and it's just such a beautiful representation of that character. It's just a man trying to do his best, and he's finding out that you know, there's corruption within the city, and the corruption goes into the GCPD. So you're seeing this man who is so good to his core not really know who he can trust, other than Batman. And he doesn't even know who Batman is, so he even questions that. And I just think that's he just really sells that role, and they have a great dynamic together. Andy Serkis is a great Alfred, although barely in it. He gets sidelined fairly quickly, but he is a really good grizzled Alfred, very reminiscent of Sean Pertwee in Gotham, where you can tell that this guy could, you know, do some serious damage. You could tell that if this guy got into a fight, like, he'd be able to hold his own, and that's really cool, because I'd like to see that explored in future movies. I think it'd be really cool to see a more hands-on Alfred. Who else? Colin Farrell. If you didn't know that was Colin Farrell, you would probably go the whole movie not knowing. He's in a handful of scenes. He's probably in about 10 minutes of the movie. And it's not just the makeup, it's the voice as well. He does like a kind of New York, Brooklyn kind of accent, and completely unrecognizable. I mean, I knew it was him, and even I was still a bit like, is it actually him? Because it just looks nothing like him. It sounds nothing like him. Colin Farrell's Irish. Like, that guy is an exceptional actor. He just absolutely transformed into the Penguin. And I'm so excited for the HBO Max Penguin TV show, because I'm just picturing Scarface with Penguin, and that, to me, is just going to be epic. So, great. Obviously, the elephant in the room, we got to talk about Robert Pattinson. Obviously, there was a lot of people that were upset about his casting. I wasn't one of those, because I'd seen a lot of his work beyond Twilight, and he is a very good actor, and nobody is gonna be bringing up Twilight Boy after this movie. Even if you don't like his version of Batman, you cannot deny that the dude knows how to act, and he absolutely kills it. He plays Batman so well, and we get a Batman where he knows that Batman is the real identity. Bruce Wayne's the mask. And in fact, we don't get a whole lot of Bruce Wayne, and when we do, it's very much this broken man. Like, he doesn't want to do the Bruce Wayne stuff. He just wants to do the Batman stuff. He's obsessed with his mission to try and make Gotham a better place. And he questions it throughout the movie. He questions his methods. He questions if he's making any kind of a difference. And it's just brilliant. The writing for his character and the execution of Robert Pattinson's portrayal as the character is outstanding. I cannot praise him enough for it. I was so excited to see it. And I was so excited to see that it was exactly what I was hoping for, which is this just darker, more insecure kind of version of Bruce Wayne, who just wants to do the Batman stuff. He just doesn't care about being Bruce Wayne, to the point where he's, you know, almost as reclusive as Carmine Falcone in this universe. And you think, damn, that means for about 2 years nobody's really seen him. It does make you wonder how no one sort of made the connection that maybe, you know, Bruce Wayne going into hiding and then Batman coming onto the scene. Maybe there's a link there. But, you know, no one cares about that, do they? And on the topic of Carmine Falcone, John Turturro, great addition. Absolutely great addition. He absolutely chews some scenery. He really embodies that mob boss character, and it was a great joy to see him on screen. So, cast, all phenomenal. The cinematography, wow, there is some beautiful scenery, some beautiful shots. There are some questionable bits as well, but for the most part, everything is just stunningly beautiful. any fight scene is shot to perfection. It is absolutely the visceral, aggressive fighting that you want to see from this movie. From the bit where he beats up the guys in the rain that we've seen in the trailer, to the first interaction with Catwoman, which was released as a clip. They have a fight, and you can see that that's a really close fight, and it's just the camera is just positioned, and you just get to see this like it's like a dance. It plays out just beautifully. All of the fight choreography and the cinematography around it just absolutely breathtaking. But in terms of cinematography and VFX combined, the Batmobile chase, holy hell, that was riveting. The first time I saw it and the engines roared in that IMAX screen, I was blown away. I was absolutely speechless by that bit. I really enjoy the way that a lot of that's shot, and you see a lot of this in the trailer where it's kind of shot from kind of a half perspective of the windscreen and the mirror. And I really like the way that's shot and how close you are to the action of it. Very rarely getting any kind of wide angle shot to any of it. But that chase is amazing. And that Batmobile kicks ass, and I cannot wait to see more of that Batmobile. There are a few questionable stuff with cinematography and camera work. There's a few moments where there's kind of like some GoPro style shots. The first time you see it, you're kind of like, oh, this is all right. I don't mind this. It's used a few times throughout the movie, and you kind of think, does it need to be used every time for that specific thing? Probably not. But that's just, one choice that was made that didn't particularly work with me. Matt Reeves, though, absolutely knocked it out of the park with this Batman movie. Great director. I cannot wait to see him do more. I'm so glad Warner Brothers let him create the movie that he wanted to create. My only real negative, the only thing that I think stops me from giving this a 10 out of 10, is the movie feels like it ends 3 times. It feels like it's not sure where it should have ended. I feel like I know where it should have ended and where the other bits should have gone. But because of that, I feel like the movie feels ever so slightly too long. Because you get to that point where you feel like it's going to end, and it feels like that was a perfect length. You kind of look back on the, 2 hours, 45 minutes that you just watched, and you think, wow, that was breathtaking. That was not too slow, not too fast, amazing. And then you just got this like extra 15 minutes locked on to the end that you're just not really sure if that works. So that for me is the only real thing that pulls me out of giving this a 10 out of 10. The score, phenomenal. It's probably my favorite Batman score, and I love the score to The Dark Knight, but I am going to have boom, 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 boom. I'm going to have that in my head for weeks and months, and maybe even for the rest of the year. That one piece of music alone is awesome. And that is, that is the backbone of the score. That little bit is everywhere. It's just dripped in everywhere. It's so awesome. So, overall, to me, this is the best representation of Batman from comic to film. It feels like a comic book film, in the sense of it feels like a comic book story that has just been straight adapted to film, even though it's not a comic book story that's been straight adapted. It's not a perfect movie. I still think, in terms of a Batman movie that was also, in my eyes, a perfect movie, I still would say The Dark Knight. I think The Dark Knight just really transcends what comic book movies could be, and it did it at a time where you know, comic book movies were kind of like this. You know, you had Spider-Man 2, which was great in 2004, but, you know, The Dark Knight came out the same year as Iron Man, so that was kind of like the big resurgence of, you know, the comic book movie world. So, The Batman, I give it a 9.5 out of 10. Like I said, great comic book interpretation of Batman. I think it's the most accurate feel we've had to a Batman comic book. Not the best film overall, but definitely positives outweigh the negatives by a long shot. If you had any reservations about Robert Pattinson, don't. If you have any plans to see this movie, get out there and see it soon. You don't want anything to be spoilt for you, although it's not like a Spider-Man No Way Home where there are massive spoilers, or like what Doctor Strange I feel like will be. There are a few twists and turns that are better experienced if you haven't seen it. So like they're better experienced the first time you go to see it, rather than watching really dodgy clips on YouTube, which for some reason lately, I saw this a lot with No Way Home. These big movies that get slightly earlier preview screens, there's YouTube clips of like all the like big reveal bits online on the day of the release of the film, and it's like, give everyone a chance. Give everyone a chance to see it. But absolutely amazing film. Matt Reeves has knocked it out of the park with his first Batman film. Cannot wait to see where he takes it next. Hopefully we don't have to wait too long for a sequel. It'd be nice if we get a 2 to 3 year turnaround. But they do also have 2 TV shows in the works. Well, 3 TV shows in the works. One focused on Gotham PD, one focused on the Penguin, and one focused on Arkham Asylum. So we'll see. They are definitely building a Matt Reeves Batman world, and I'm glad that it's its own thing. It's nice. It's just nice to get a comic book movie that's just its own thing. It's a standalone thing that's good, unlike other ones. Venom. If you like Venom, you like Venom. It's just not for me. But the Batman, amazing film. Get out and see it. If you can see it in IMAX, I highly recommend it in IMAX. There's some scenes in IMAX that just absolutely blow you away. That being said, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you've seen The Batman, let me know what you thought of it. Try to keep it spoiler-free, and I'll see you in the next video.